Good morning, YouTube family. What's going on? How are you doing? I look a little ashy. Just because this congestion has me dried up, okay? Like, I've taken everything. So if you are one who has experienced, this ain't nothing but a cold, and I feel all the pressure right above my eyes. And it's draining, which is causing this wet cough, which I hate. So, but Merry Christmas. It is Christmas Eve. Love this time of year. Excuse me while I cough. Anyway, but I wanted to get on here, a little bit of a hot take. There's a couple of reasons why that I have came to the conclusion. Now, here's the thing. God has an awesome sense of humor. So I'm not here to nullify God's will in this, but this is what I am standing on. Say hi to my puppy. This is what I'm standing on. As someone who is about to enter another decade, here's my viewpoint as to why I have made a decision that I am not going to have kids. Okay. Now in that I'm mindful, but I have to be careful because with me not having kids might mean that I probably shouldn't be out here practicing either. So there's that. But here are some of the reasons why I've decided that I'm not going to have kids. And that's number one. So my mother and my grandmother, we were close, right? And now that they're gone, it just doesn't, I feel like I've lost that community, that sense of community. Not saying that there aren't others out there, not saying that my future husband would not be supportive, but when I was growing up and my mom had my brothers, my grandmother automatically took care of my brothers while my mom worked. It was a very short period of time where my brothers went to preschool. Okay, very small window of when they went to preschool. One brother went and lasted for a couple of months. And I think, one brother went, lasted a couple of months. The other brother didn't go at all. I lasted for, Taco, sit down. I lasted for a couple of weeks, and then my mom stayed at home with me. So just not having that network there, it doesn't, So that's one of the reasons why I don't want to have kids. Number two, there are a lot of injustices that are happening among Black women in childbirth. And I'm not going to mention this person's name, so please don't hop all over my page. But even some Black women believe that our pain is exaggerated, and that's crazy to me, and that's concerning to me, because that is a real thing. From what I've read and what I know, Black women go through these unfair practices on basically most platforms throughout their lives, starting from childhood, and just kind of growing up into it. And so from what I have read so far and just putting together just secondary information and secondary literature review, stress before a woman gets pregnant will still carry an impact on the woman during pregnancy and into postpartum, which ultimately can lead to increased mortality rates. Right now, women the mortality rates are so bad for childbirth in the United States that it's third world country bad. It's third world country bad. And I know God is a healer, and I know God is a provider. But something in my soul is just really just not really comfortable with having children right now around topics like that, because I'll just use me for an example. I'm the first and oldest daughter, and there's a lot of pressure put on the first and oldest daughter, and I've experienced that probably as young as, I want to say, maybe 9. And I could just remember my mom just back in the 90s when my mom had to go to work overnight and she left me in the house by myself while she worked all overnight, and she would say, someone comes through the door, you do what you need to do. You bite them, you spit on them, you throw up on them, you punch them, you do what you need to do to make sure that they don't do nothing with you. And I remember not sleeping at night because I remember being terrified of someone coming through this door and I would have to cut them. Like, I remember I would go to bed next to a butcher knife. Like, I just remember going to bed on the couch next to a butcher knife. It was that bad. And so that alone is stress. And knowing that, just being in stressful environments is not, you have to think about your own health before you decide to conceive, right? And so those things are very important to me. However, I still am prioritizing my own health now because, like I said, God's will can interject at any time. God can always change my mind at any time, okay? And he just might. So I'm not here to override his will. I'm saying this is how I'm feeling currently. Number 3 reason as to why I don't want kids. Inflation is crazy. My mom used to always say it is so expensive to live. And I used to really hate that statement. And this was way before inflation got really badly. But I have to remember my mom did stuff, she was in her 20s in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm sure that things were a lot cheaper in the 80s. No, I'm not sure. I know a lot of things are a lot cheaper in the 80s than they are in 2023. And for me personally, I can't imagine having children in this economy. I just can't, a pastor way back in the day when I was living in Northern Virginia, he said this, and this is so profound because he was so right. Find something to do until you die, because retirement ain't going to exist. And he said this in 2008. And I personally can't now, like I said, God is also a way maker and he's a provider, okay? And he supplies us with all of our needs. So I'm very aware of that. But in my mind, in my carnal human mind, I can't imagine having kids in this economy. And number 4, okay? And this is going to sound really selfish, okay? So I might lose some of y'all with this. I don't care. It's my page. I don't want to take care of anybody. I just don't. And like I said, God has the capacity to change my mind. I know it. But I feel like that I understand where my mom was coming from when years ago, she took care of her grandmother when she fell ill, where she wasn't able to do stuff. She took care of my dad when he had a massive stroke and died. My mom was basically, she was married to a disabled vet. She was actually married to 2 disabled vets. She took care of my uncle. She was willing to take care of my aunt, but that was her homegirl. She was going to do it anyway. But my mom has always been a person that takes care of people. And I feel like that I've inherited that piece. And, my brother, he jokes with me. He's like, oh, Pat, you're a nurturer. I am a nurturer, but I'm a nurturer because I learned from the biggest nurturer, my mother. And as a result, I don't want to do that. I really, really, really want to be selfish, really badly. And like I said, God has the capacity to change my mind. I know this. For example, I used to always say, I actually met someone who I eventually dated, and he was like, yeah, come to Kentucky, da 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 da, right? Moved to Kentucky. And I was like, I'll never do that. And here I was in Kentucky. Here I am actually currently living in Kentucky. But it's just funny how life works when we say never, 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 never. Let me tell you something. You always need to make room for God's plans, okay? Okay? So that's super important. So I highly encourage you, before you go into the new year, all kidding put aside, this after Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year's Day, take some quiet time and get into God's word, pray, fast, and ask God what he wants for you in 2024. That's so important. Okay, like I said, right now for me, the whole kid thing don't look that good. Okay, and so but I need to go into my prayer closet, go into my war room, and consult God more, because like I said, right now my flesh and in my carnal mind, it's all novelties. So, but I'm also mindful that for me to stay away from having kids, I don't need to be practicing. But I've been doing good. 2024 is year 5. Is the start of year 5 of me not having sex. So doing pretty good. Ain't practicing. So, but yeah, just wanted to drop that in your spirit. I'm curious to know, if anybody is watching, curious to know, what are some reasons why you just not ready for kids, or you not really out here trying to practice to get caught up with kids. Now, I'm not saying kids are terrible though. Okay. Please don't take it as that. And I understand people say kids are a blessing, and they are. Okay. But there's people out there that just feel like, I don't know if I want them. I don't know if I'm ready for them. And that's okay too. Just because a person says they don't want kids and they're not ready for them does not make them a horrible individual. Okay. So we have to stop making people out to be weirdos if they don't want kids. Okay. If they don't want kids, they don't want kids. Maybe maybe they recognize they're not in the headspace for it. There's some people giving birth to kids and they not in the right headspace for it. And there's some people that recognize they're not in that right headspace for it, and so they don't want that, and that's okay. So if you are one that watches my videos and you want to comment as to why maybe you don't want kids, I'm eager to know. But anyway, if I don't get back on here before then, you have a wonderful Christmas.